The Tale of the Grey Hills. Part 1, The Forest Spirits. Once upon a time, there lived two brothers. The younger was named Joan, and the elder, Siva. They lived in a small village at the foot of the Grey Hills, where the forest began just beyond the gardens. Their father was a fisherman, and their mother a weaver, and on long winter evenings she would tell them tales of Huldras, Ntken, and the spirits of the ancient woods. The brothers listened with bated breath, but as they grew older, they began to laugh at her stories. "Just old wives' tales," said Siva. "The only things in that forest are woodpeckers and foxes." But one warm evening, as summer waned, the brothers went into the woods to gather mushrooms. They walked deeper than ever before and didn't notice when the sun slipped behind the hills and the sky turned copper blue. When they realized they were lost, the path behind them had vanished. The trees stood different, silent, and strange. "I think the forest has noticed us," Joan whispered, clutching his brother's hand. Just then, a light flickered between the trees, not a lantern, not the sun, but something like a wandering star. The brothers followed it. The light led them ever deeper into the thicket, until it brought them to a clearing, where a single ash tree stood. Beneath the tree sat a girl, her skin the color of morning frost, her hair like flax, and her eyes green as moss. "You are guests," she said, though her lips did not move. "But you have stepped onto an invisible path." "Who are you?" asked Siva. "I am an elf, a spirit of the falling leaves. In your tongue, we are called elves. The forest knows of you now, and not all within it will be pleased." She rose and swept her hand through the air. The grass around them grew greener, and the stars in the sky froze, as if holding their breath. "I can guide you to the forest's edge," she said, "but only if you give me your vow." "What vow?" Siva asked warily. "Take nothing from the forest that shines. Call no one by name, unless you know who they truly are. And if you hear music, do not follow it." Joan nodded at once. Siva hesitated, but in the end, he agreed. The girl vanished, turning into a silver mist. The next morning, the brothers awoke beneath the same ash tree, and before them lay a narrow path. They followed it until the forest grew familiar again, with pine-cones, birds, and bubbling brooks. But Siva said not a word along the way. "Did you see," he said to his brother later, "how much she looked like the girl in Mother's painting?" "She wasn't a girl," Siva, Joan whispered. "She was older than the tree." And though they found their way home, their path through the forest was not yet over. The Tale of the Grey Hills. Part 2, The Trolls of the Weeping Cliffs. Several days had passed since the brothers returned from the forest path. But something in Siva had changed. He grew quiet and distant, as if he were listening to something no one else could hear. At night, he would rise from his bed and stand at the window, staring into the woods while Joan slept. One morning, he said, "I dreamed of music. It was calling from beneath the mountain. I have to go." "But remember the vow," Joan whispered fearfully. "Don't follow the music." Siva nodded, but a shadow had already taken root in his eyes, as if the call was stronger than memory. And so, against his will, Joan followed him once more, past the fields, over mossy hummocks, to where the cliffs began. They were known as the Weeping Cliffs, for the locals believed trolls lived there, and that the rain on their slopes was their sorrow. The cliffs greeted the brothers with heavy silence. Siva walked forward as if he knew the way. And when the sun touched the mountain's peak, a deep voice boomed from the rock. "Who walks upon my bones without a word?" From the cliffside emerged a towering figure, with a nose like a crag, eyes like mossy lakes, and a beard tangled with tree roots. It was a gate troll, guardian of the ancient caves. "We are lost," said Joan. But Siva stepped forward. "I heard the call. I've come for answers." The troll laughed, and the rocks trembled around them. "Then you must answer 3 riddles, stubborn-hearted boy. Fail, and become a stone by my door." Siva nodded, and the troll began. The first riddle. Not alive, yet it breathes. No hands, yet it sways. It does not eat, but it swallows. What is it? Wind, Siva answered. The troll nodded, and a rune flared on the stone. The second riddle. It has but 1 leg, yet none can outrun it. Not a beast, yet it roars. Not a horse, yet it charges. River, said Siva. The second rune gleamed. The third riddle. 1,000 eyes, yet not a single gaze. It looks from above, but sees nothing. Siva hesitated. Joan whispered. Stars. Siva repeated the answer aloud. The third rune burst into light, and the troll bowed his head. The way is open. But you are now bound to what called you. And what you find may never let you go. The cave behind him opened like a great maw. The brothers stepped inside, not from bravery, but because the way back had vanished, just as it had the first time. Inside, they found stone bridges suspended in darkness, and columns carved with glowing runes, as pale as ice beneath a full moon. On the walls were etched scenes from myth, Jormungand coiled around the world, Odin with his spear piercing a giant, and children staring into fire. Joan did not know how much time passed. When they emerged, the sky was different, blanketed with grey clouds, and in the distance, the forest stood once more. But Siva was pale, and runes shimmered in his pupils with every step he took. What did you find in there? Joan asked. Siva only whispered. I saw who I could become. And what it would cost. The Tale of the Grey Hills. Part 3, The Witch of the Misty Marshes. When the brothers emerged from the mountain depths, their steps led them once again into the forest. But the woods were no longer as they remembered. The trees stood closer together, their trunks coated in black lichen, and the air had thickened like honey, heavy with the scent of bogewater and ash. Joan wanted to turn back, but the path behind had vanished. Siva walked on in silence, as if he knew where he was going, or could no longer stop. On the third day, they reached a trembling mire, where a milk-grey fog curled over the reeds. She lives here, Siva whispered. The one they call Sigrun of the Reeds. Among the rushes, a hut came into view, perched on long, thin legs like those of a heron. Smoke billowed from its crooked chimney, and a yellow light flickered in the window. The door creaked open on its own, and the brothers stepped inside. The air smelled of dried herbs, burnt salt, and iron. An old woman stood by the hearth, her face like withered bark, her eyes flickering with the tongues of witch fire. Two have come. One already belongs to another power, said the witch without turning. What do you seek? To go home, Joan breathed. Sigrun turned. Home is not a place, child. It is what lives within you. But I can show you the road, if you're ready to pay the price. What do you want? Siva asked. Not a thing, not gold. I take memories. One precious memory, for one path. From each of you. Siva nodded without hesitation. Joan stood frozen. But then he remembered their mother, how she would sing by the window when the rain fell. And he knew that to save his brother, he would give up anything, anything but that. I agree, he whispered. The witch stepped forward and touched Siva's forehead. He shuddered. Then she touched Jones. The world dimmed. When he opened his eyes again, they were standing at the edge of their familiar forest. Behind them, only the wind in the pines. The sun was rising, just as it had on the first day of their journey. Siva turned to his brother. "How did we get here?" he asked. Joan looked at him for a long moment. The runes were gone from Siva's eyes. He remembered nothing, no song, no cave, no witch. "We just went to pick mushrooms," Joan said gently. "I think we got a little lost." Many years passed. Siva grew up and became a carpenter. Joan became the keeper of the village library. He wrote down all he remembered, and much more. In his books lived elves and trolls, witches and spirits, and in every line, something of what Siva had forgotten but Joan kept safe for them both. And on the quietest nights, when fog rolled down from the hills, Joan still heard distant music, as if something deep in the forest was still calling him. But he no longer answered.